them and wanted to work in them, but that was a moment. The moment was deepened when we got back to the Herald city room. So 79, I forget who would have been night city editor, but some wonderfully crusty old city editor was there. And he knew I had been running film for my brother, and I was just waiting for my brother, was processing his film. And he said, "Hey kid, you want a drink?" And he leaned back and grabbed this medicine chest that was on a pillar right in the center of the newsroom. And he opened it, and there was a bottle of vodka in there. And I said, "I'm definitely going to work with you." And it was just such a great ride through newspapers. I ended up working for the Bergen Record, which is in New Jersey. And then I went to the New York Daily News, where one of my editors was Matt Storin, who became the editor of the Globe, and he knew I always wanted to work at the Globe, and he knew I always wanted to be a foreign correspondent. And he sort of invited me back when he came to become editor of the Globe. And I had this job I wanted my whole life. It took me about 3 years of working on enterprise stories in Boston before I got a chance to get a foreign posting. But John Yemma, who was then foreign editor, knew how badly I wanted this job, and occasionally would throw a foreign assignment my way, including the wisdom to assign me to go cover this movement called the Taliban in 1995. And I really loved my chance to be a foreign correspondent for the Globe. So I did that from, I was Jerusalem bureau chief for 4.5 years, and I was London bureau chief for 4.5 years. And those years spanned 9/11 and a lot of the tumult of what's happened in the world since then. So I covered the war in Afghanistan from the very beginning, and I covered the war in Iraq from the very beginning. And I came back pretty exhausted from that, and they gave me a Nieman Fellowship, which is a wonderful year at that university in Cambridge over there. And I kept hearing doom and gloom about the Globe and how bad things were, and I just thought it was classic whining on the part of reporters. Reporters are great whiners, as you may know. If you don't know, you'll come to learn if you want to get into journalism. And then I got in the newsroom, and it really was different. It really, I had this bizarre experience, right, of being away for like a decade. And then I came back, and it really was clear that they were shifting the focus of the paper. There were economic forces that required them to do that. And I always loved the fact that the Boston Globe punched above its weight class in foreign reporting. And pretty soon after my return, they shut down all of the foreign bureaus. And they no longer had a foreign editor, and we had a great one in Jim Smith. And suddenly, what I loved to do for the paper was no longer an option. And you know, I think rather than sort of spend a lot of time on the doom and gloom of the future of newspapers, I began to think about what could be a way to do something that could bring back foreign reporting. How could we augment papers like the Christian Science Monitor, the New York Times, the Washington Post that are doing great foreign reporting? We need more eyes in the world, so how could I try to create something that could do that? And I began to pursue that at first as a not-for-profit. So my original sort of game plan that I was cooking in my basement was a not-for-profit, but I have 4 boys. And while I was cooking that plan in my basement, I would hear their pounding feet on the floorboards above me. And I thought, I cannot work in a not-for-profit. I have to make money. I have 4 kids to put through college. There is no trust fund. There is just me. I've got to do this. And I thought, wow, I'm not going to really be able to pull this off. I had raised a few $100,000, which sounds like a lot of money, but it's not if you want to start a business. And I had sort of just missed on the Knight Foundation grant, which is $500,000. And they had encouraged me to apply again. And I thought, I can't do this. I can't make it happen. And it was at that time that I found out that there was a gentleman named Philip Alboni, if you know him. He's the founder of New England Cable News. Great journalist and great businessman. And he had a similar plan to create a foreign news organization online, exclusively, and we ended up getting together and we sort of sat down, and I had sort of different ideas than his. I wanted to do more depth, special projects, really deep reporting. He wanted a sort of wide network of freelance correspondents. And what we did is we sort of brought our two ideas together. Phil had been very successful in creating New England Cable News, so he had the confidence of some of the key investors. And he brought that investment money to the table. I was pleasantly surprised to find out the investors I had approached in a not-for-profit realm were really willing to come in a for-profit realm. They really believed in it. And that is sort of the origin of what happened. So a year ago, on St. Patrick's Day, I took the buyout at the Boston Globe and set out to begin to build this new business from scratch. How many of you have seen the movie The Boiler Room? Anybody? So it's this creepy movie about these guys who are sort of these low-life characters. But the scene I'm thinking about is when they walk in the room and it's this huge room with all these phones and no one's there. That's what our offices look like when we walk in Jerk Up. It was just cubicles, and it was just myself and Phil. And I had never built a company from scratch, and it was quite an experience to really literally buy the computers, buy everything that we needed to build this company out, and to begin to assemble a team. And I spent about 6 months, I traveled literally around the world recruiting correspondents. And we were simultaneously putting together more investors, and refining our business plan, and slowly pulling this idea together called GlobalPost. And now we launched 2.5 months ago. We have 65 foreign correspondents who are on a sort of part-time model for us. We call it sort of an old super stringer model, phrase from the globe. So we have 65 correspondents in 45 countries. And it's just been really exciting. How many of you, any of you been on GlobalPost? Anybody? Great. So we're new. I really want you to go there. It's globalpost.com. And I want to encourage you to apply for internships, which we have this summer and next year. I want to encourage you to look at our Junior Year Abroad page, which is coming in the fall. And we're looking for correspondents. So if any of you are thinking of a junior year abroad, we're really interested in where you're going and having you possibly be part of a student correspondent corps that we're trying to create for this one part of the site called Year Abroad. I think we'll jump into it together. I don't want to take up too much time. I just want to end by saying, and maybe it'll be a good transition back to the wider issues here, but that is, we've had incredibly bad news at our alma mater across the street this week with this threat by the New York Times to shut it down if they don't get the concessions they feel they need from the unions and apparently from management as well. So how many of you have heard about that? So this is a huge deal because this is a great newspaper that I really wish all the best for. I think it's a great institution in the city. If it dies, we're all in trouble. Because it's a paper that keeps the city honest and keeps a lot of the officials here honest. But I want to at the same time say, this is not a time of doom and gloom in the business of journalism. This is an incredibly exciting time. If you're a young person interested in journalism, you are on it. This is the moment. These new journalistic organizations are going to take shape, or old ones like the Christian Science Monitor, old and distinguished ones are going to transform themselves. There'll be new ones created like GlobalPost or Politico. How many of you followed the campaign on Politico? There is a sort of collapse of the Holy Roman Empire of traditional media. But out of that, I think is going to come some really interesting new principalities. And I think it's an exciting time. So I don't want you to think this is a doom and gloom conversation. This is a conversation about possibilities. And a wonderful quote I heard the other day from Vartan Gregorian, who is the head of the Carnegie Foundation and former president of Brown University, really wonderful intellect. heard at a conference all of this whining about the death of newspapers. And he literally stopped this room and said, let me tell you something. The truth will never go out of business.